Hello, and welcome. You're listening to the first part of a lecture series dedicated to the worlds of ancient Greece, a remarkable civilization where myth and history intertwine into one vivid, timeless story. In this series, you'll discover legends of gods and heroes, the secrets of Olympus, the grandeur of temples, and the philosophy that shaped the world. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming episodes. Each one will take you deeper into this fascinating world. And now, let's begin. The myths about the gods and their struggle with giants and titans are mainly based on Hesiod's poem, Theogony, the origin of the gods. Some legends are also borrowed from Homer's poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the poem Metamorphoses, Transformations, by the Roman poet Ovid. In the beginning, there was only eternal, boundless, dark chaos. It was the source of life in the world. Everything arose from boundless chaos, the entire world, and the immortal gods. The goddess of the earth, Gaia, also arose from chaos. She spread out widely, mighty, giving life to everything that lives and grows on her. Far below the earth, as far as the vast, bright sky is from us, in immeasurable depths, the gloomy Tartarus was born, a terrible abyss full of eternal darkness. From chaos, the source of life, a mighty force was born, the all-enlivening love, Eros. The world began to take shape. Boundless chaos gave birth to eternal darkness, Erebus, and dark night, Nyx. And from night and darkness came eternal light, ether, and joyful bright day, Hemera. Light spread throughout the world, and night and day began to alternate. The mighty, fertile earth gave birth to the boundless blue sky, Uranus, and the sky spread out over the earth. The high mountains, born of the earth, rose proudly toward it, and the eternally murmuring sea spread out widely. Mother Earth gave birth to the sky, the mountains, and the sea, and they have no father. Uranus, the sky, reigned over the world. He took the fertile earth as his wife. Uranus and Gaia had 6 sons and 6 daughters, mighty, formidable titans. Their son, the Titan Ocean, flowing like a boundless river over the whole earth. And the goddess Thetis gave birth to all the rivers that roll their waves to the sea, and the sea goddesses, the Oceanids. The Titan, Hyperion, and Theia gave birth to the sun, Helios, the moon, Selene, and the rosy-cheeked dawn, Eos, Aurora. From Astrea and Eos came all the stars that shine in the dark night sky, and all the winds, the stormy north wind, Boreas, the east wind, Eurus, the humid south wind, Notus, and the gentle west wind, Zephyr, which brings clouds laden with rain. In addition to the Titans, the mighty earth gave birth to 3 giants, the Cyclopes with 1 eye in their foreheads, and 3 enormous, mountain-like, 50-headed giants, the 100-handers, Hecatonchires, so named because each of them had 100 hands. Nothing can withstand their terrible power. Their elemental force knows no bounds. Uranus hated his giant children, so he imprisoned them in the depths of the goddess Earth in deep darkness and did not allow them to come out into the light. Their mother, Earth, suffered. She was weighed down by this terrible burden, locked in her depths. she called her children, the Titans, and persuaded them to rise up against their father Uranus. But they were afraid to raise their hands against him. Only the youngest of them, the cunning Cronus, overthrew his father with trickery and took his power away from him. The goddess Night gave birth to a whole host of terrible beings as punishment for Cronus. Thanatos, the god of death; Eris, the goddess of discord; Apatheia, the goddess of deception; Kur, the goddess of destruction; Hypnos, the god of sleep, with its swarm of dark, heavy visions; Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance for crimes, who knows no mercy; and many others. These gods brought horror, discord, deception, strife, and misfortune to the world, where Cronus reigned on his father's throne. Now I will tell you about the birth of Zeus. Cronus was not sure that power would remain in his hands forever. He feared that his children would rise up against him and suffer the same fate that he had inflicted on his father Uranus. He feared his children. So Cronus ordered his wife Rhea to bring him their newborn children, and he mercilessly swallowed them. Rhea was horrified to see the fate of her children. Cronus had already swallowed 5 of them: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Rhea did not want to lose her last child. On the advice of her parents, Uranus Sky and Gaia Earth, she fled to the island of Crete, where, in a deep cave, her youngest son, Zeus, was born. In this cave, Rhea hid her son from his cruel father and gave him a long stone wrapped in swaddling clothes to swallow instead of her son. Cronus did not suspect that he had been deceived by his wife. Meanwhile, Zeus grew up on Crete. The nymphs Adrasteia and Idea cherished little Zeus, feeding him the milk of the divine goat Amalthea. Bees brought honey to little Zeus from the slopes of the high mountain Dicte. At the entrance to the cave, young Curetes 5 struck their shields with swords every time little Zeus cried, so that Cronus would not hear his cries, and Zeus would not suffer the fate of his brothers and sisters. The picture of the life of the gods on Olympus is given in Homer's works Iliad and Odyssey, which glorify the tribal aristocracy and its leaders, the Basileus, as the best people, standing far above the rest of the population. The gods of Olympus differ from aristocrats and Basileus only in that they are immortal, powerful, and capable of performing miracles. The beautiful and mighty god, Zeus, grew up and matured. He rebelled against his father and forced him to return the children he had swallowed back to the world. One by one, Cronus vomited his children, the beautiful and bright gods, from his mouth. They began to fight Cronus and the Titans for power over the world. This struggle was terrible and persistent. Cronus's children established themselves on high Olympus. Some of the Titans sided with them, the first being the Titan Oceanus and his daughter Styx, and her children Zeal, Power, and Victory. This struggle was dangerous for the Olympian gods. Their opponents, the Titans, were powerful and formidable. But the Cyclopes came to Zeus's aid. They forged thunderbolts and lightning for him, which Zeus hurled at the Titans. The struggle had already lasted 10 years, but victory did not favor either side. Finally, Zeus decided to free the 100-handed giants, the Hecatonchires, from the bowels of the earth. He called on them for help. Terrible and huge as mountains, they emerged from the bowels of the earth and rushed into battle. They tore whole rocks from the mountains. and threw them at the Titans. Hundreds of rocks flew toward the Titans as they approached Olympus. The earth groaned. The air was filled with thunder, and everything around shook. Even Tartarus trembled from this struggle. Zeus hurled one fiery lightning bolt after another, and deafening thunderclaps. Fire engulfed the whole earth. The seas boiled, and smoke and stench covered everything with a thick veil. Finally, the mighty Titans faltered. Their strength was broken. They were defeated. The Olympians bound them and cast them down into gloomy Tartarus, into eternal darkness. At the indestructible copper gates of Tartarus, the 100-handed Hecatonchires stood guard, ensuring that the mighty Titans would not escape from Tartarus again. The Titans' power in the world was over. But the struggle did not end there. Gaia Earth was angry with Zeus, the Olympian, for treating her defeated Titan children so harshly. She married the gloomy Tartarus and gave birth to the terrible 100-headed monster, Typhon. Huge, with 100 dragon heads, Typhon rose from the depths of the earth. He shook the air with a wild howl. The barking of dogs, human voices, the roar of an enraged bull, and the roar of a lion could be heard in this howl. Violent flames swirled around Typhon, and the earth shook under his heavy footsteps. The gods shuddered with horror. But Zeus, the Thunderer, boldly rushed at him, and the battle began. Lightning flashed again in Zeus's hands, and thunder rolled. The earth and the heavens shook to their foundations. The earth burst into bright flames again, as it had during the battle with the Titans. The seas boiled at the mere approach of Typhon. Hundreds of fiery arrows of lightning rained down from Zeus, the Thunderer. It seemed that the very air was burning from their fire, and the dark storm clouds were burning. Zeus incinerated all of Typhon's 100 heads. Typhon fell to the ground. His body gave off such heat that everything around him melted. Zeus lifted Typhon's body and cast him into the gloomy Tartarus, which had given birth to him. But even in Tartarus, Typhon still threatens the gods and all living things. He causes storms and eruptions. He begot with Echidna, half woman, half serpent, the terrible two-headed dog, Orpheus, the hellish dog Cerberus, the Lernaean Hydra, and the Chimera. Typhon often shakes the earth. The Olympian gods defeated their enemies. No one could oppose their power anymore. They could now rule the world in peace. The most powerful of them, Zeus, the Thunderer, took the sky for himself. Poseidon took the sea, and Hades took the underground kingdom of the souls of the dead. The earth remained in common possession. Although the sons of Cronus divided the power over the world among themselves, Zeus, the ruler of the sky, still reigns over them all. He rules over men and gods. He knows everything in the world. Now I will tell you about Olympus. High on bright Olympus reigns Zeus, surrounded by a host of gods. Here are his wife, Hera, golden-haired Apollo, with his sister Artemis, golden Aphrodite, Zeus's mighty daughter Athena, and many other gods. 3 beautiful Horae guard the entrance to high Olympus and raise a thick cloud that covers the gates when the gods descend to earth or ascend to the bright halls of Zeus. High above Olympus, the blue, bottomless sky stretches wide, and golden light pours down from it. There is no rain or snow in the kingdom of Zeus. It is always bright and joyful summer there. Below, clouds swirl, sometimes covering the distant earth. There, on earth, spring and summer are replaced by autumn and winter. Joy and merriment are replaced by misfortune and grief. True, the gods also know sorrow, but it soon passes, and joy returns to Olympus. The gods feast in their golden halls, built by Zeus's son Hephaestus. King Zeus sits on a high golden throne. The majestic and divinely beautiful face of Zeus exudes grandeur and a proud, calm awareness of his power and might. At his throne are the goddess of peace, Irene, and Zeus's constant companion, the winged goddess of victory, Nike. Here enters the beautiful, majestic goddess Hera, wife of Zeus. Zeus honors his wife. All the gods of Olympus surround Hera, the patroness of marriage, with respect. When the great Hera, resplendent in her beauty and magnificent attire, enters the banquet hall, all the gods rise and bow before the wife of Zeus, the Thunderer. And she, proud of her power, goes to the golden throne and sits next to the king of gods and men, Zeus. Near Hera's throne stands her messenger, the goddess of the rainbow, the light-winged Iris, always ready to fly quickly on her rainbow wings to carry out Hera's commands to the farthest corners of the earth. The gods feast. Zeus's daughter, the young Hebe, and the son of the king of Troy, Ganymede, Zeus's favorite, who received immortality from him, bring them ambrosia and nectar, the food and drink of the gods. The beautiful Charites and Muses delight them with their singing and dancing. Holding hands, they dance in circles, and the gods admire their light movements and their wondrous, eternally youthful beauty. The feast of the Olympians becomes more cheerful. At these feasts, the gods decide all matters, determining the fate of the world and of mankind. From Olympus, Zeus sends his gifts to people and establishes order and laws on earth. The fate of people is in Zeus's hands. Happiness and misfortune, good and evil, life and death. Everything is in his hands. 2 large vessels stand at the gates of Zeus's palace. One vessel contains gifts of good, the other of evil. Zeus draws good and evil from them and sends them to people. Woe to the man from whom the Thunderer draws gifts only from the vessel of evil. Woe also to those who violate the order established by Zeus on earth and do not obey his laws. The son of Cronus will frown menacingly, and black clouds will then cover the sky. The great Zeus will be angry, and the hair on his head will rise in fear. His eyes will burn with an unbearable glow. He will wave his right hand, and thunder will roll across the sky. Fiery lightning will flash, and high Olympus will shake. Zeus is not the only one who keeps the laws. At his throne stands the goddess Themis, who keeps the laws. At the command of the Thunderer, she convenes assemblies of the gods on bright Olympus and assemblies of the people on earth, ensuring that order and law are not violated. On Olympus is also Zeus's daughter, the goddess Dike, who watches over justice. Zeus severely punishes unjust judges when Dike reports to him that they do not obey the laws given by Zeus. The goddess Dike is the protector of truth and the enemy of deception. Zeus maintains order and truth in the world and sends happiness and sorrow to people. But although Zeus sends happiness and misfortune to people, the fate of people is determined by the inexorable goddesses of fate, the Moirai, who live on bright Olympus. The fate of Zeus himself is in their hands. Fate rules over mortals and gods. No one can escape the commands of inexorable fate. There is no power, no authority that can change anything that is destined for gods and mortals. One can only humbly bow before fate and submit to it. Only the Moirai know the decrees of fate. Moira Clotho spins the thread of a person's life, determining the length of their life. When the thread breaks, life ends. Moira Lachesis blindly draws the lot that falls to a person in life. No one can change the fate determined by the Moirai, for the third Moira, Atropos, records everything that her sisters have assigned to a person in life in a long scroll. And what is written in the scroll of fate is inevitable. The great, harsh fates are relentless. There is also another goddess of fate on Olympus, the goddess Tyche, the goddess of happiness and prosperity. From the cornucopia, the horn of the divine goat Amalthea, whose milk Zeus himself was fed, she bestows gifts upon people. And happy is the man who meets the goddess of happiness, Tyche, on his life's journey. But how rare this is, and how unhappy is the man from whom the goddess Tyche, who has just given him her gifts, turns away. Thus reigns the great king of men and gods, Zeus, surrounded by a host of bright gods on Olympus, protecting order and truth throughout the world. Next, let me tell you about Poseidon. Deep in the depths of the sea stands the magnificent palace of Zeus's older brother, the Thunderer, Poseidon, the shaker of the earth. Poseidon rules the seas, and the waves obey his slightest movement, armed with his formidable trident. There, in the depths of the sea, Poseidon lives with his beautiful wife, Amphitrite, daughter of the sea prophet Nereus, whom the great ruler of the sea depths, Poseidon, kidnapped from her father. He once saw her dancing with her sisters, the Nereids, on the shore of the island of Naxos. The god of the sea was captivated by the beautiful Amphitrite and wanted to take her away in his chariot. But Amphitrite hid with the Titan Atlas, who holds the heavens on his mighty shoulders. Poseidon could not find Nereus's beautiful daughter for a long time. Finally, a dolphin revealed her hiding place to him. For this service, Poseidon placed the dolphin among the heavenly constellations. Poseidon kidnapped Nereus's beautiful daughter from Atlas and married her. Since then, Amphitrite has lived with her husband Poseidon in an underwater palace. High above the palace, the waves of the sea roar. A host of sea gods surround Poseidon, obedient to his will. Among them is Poseidon's son Triton, who summons terrible storms with the thunderous sound of his conch shell trumpet. Among the deities are Amphitrite's beautiful sisters, the Nereids. Poseidon rules the sea. When he races across the sea in his chariot, drawn by marvelous horses, the ever-roaring waves part and make way for the Lord Poseidon. Equal in beauty to Zeus himself, he races across the boundless sea, surrounded by dolphins playing and fish swimming up from the depths of the sea and crowding around his chariot. When Poseidon waves his mighty trident, the waves rise like mountains, covered with white crests of foam, and a fierce storm rages on the sea. The waves crash noisily against the coastal rocks, and shake the earth. But Poseidon extends his trident over the waves, and they calm down. The storm subsides. The sea is calm again, smooth as a mirror, and the blue, boundless sea laps softly against the shore. Many deities surround Zeus's great brother, Poseidon. Among them is the prophetic old man of the sea, Nereus, who knows all the hidden secrets of the future. Nereus is a stranger to lies and deceit. He reveals only the truth to gods and mortals. The wise old man gives wise advice. Nereus has 50 beautiful daughters. The young Nereids splash merrily in the waves of the sea, sparkling among them with their divine beauty. Holding hands, they swim out of the depths of the sea in a chain and dance on the shore to the gentle lapping of the calm sea waves. The echo of the coastal rocks repeats the sounds of their gentle singing, like the quiet roar of the sea. The Nereids protect sailors and grant them a safe voyage. Among the deities of the sea is the old man Proteus, who, like the sea, changes his appearance and transforms himself at will into various animals and monsters. He is also a prophetic god. One only needs to be able to catch him by surprise, capture him, and force him to reveal the secrets of the future. Among the companions of Poseidon, the shaker of the earth, is the god Glaucus, the patron of sailors and fishermen, who also possesses the gift of prophecy. Often, rising from the depths of the sea, he revealed the future and gave wise advice to mortals. The mighty gods of the sea have great power, but they are all ruled by Zeus's great brother, Poseidon. All the seas and all the lands are surrounded by the gray-haired ocean, a Titan god equal to Zeus himself in honor and glory. He lives far away at the edge of the world, and the affairs of the earth do not trouble his heart. Ocean has 3,000 sons, the river gods, and 3,000 daughters, the Oceanids, goddesses of streams and springs. The sons and daughters of the great god Ocean bring prosperity and joy to mortals with their ever-flowing living water, which they use to water the whole earth and all living things. Let us move on to the kingdom of the dark Aid, Pluto. Deep underground reigns the relentless, gloomy brother of Zeus, Hades. His kingdom is full of darkness and horror. The joyful rays of the bright sun never penetrate there. Bottomless chasms lead from the surface of the earth to the sad kingdom of Hades. Gloomy rivers flow in it. The icy, sacred river Styx flows there, by whose waters the gods themselves swear. The rivers Cocytus and Acheron roll their waves there. The souls of the dead fill its gloomy shores with their mournful cries. In the underground kingdom, the waters of the Lethe spring flow, bringing oblivion of all earthly things. The disembodied light shadows of the dead rush across the gloomy fields of Hades, overgrown with pale asphodel flowers. They lament their joyless life without light and without desires. Their moans are quiet, barely audible, like the rustling of withered leaves driven by the autumn wind. There is no return from this realm of sorrow. The three-headed hellhound Cerberus, with snakes moving menacingly on his neck, guards the exit. The stern, old Charon, the ferryman of the dead, will not take a single soul back across the murky waters of the Acheron to where the bright sun of life shines. The souls of the dead are doomed to eternal joyless existence in the gloomy realm of Hades. In this kingdom, where neither light, joy, nor the sorrows of earthly life reach, Zeus's brother Hades reigns. He sits on a golden throne with his wife Persephone. He is served by the relentless goddesses of vengeance, the Erinyes. Fearsome with whips and snakes, they pursue the criminal. They give him no moment's peace and torment him with remorse. There is nowhere to hide from them. They find their victim everywhere. At Hades' throne sit the judges of the realm of the dead, Minos and Rhadamanthus. Here, too, by the throne, is Thanatos, the god of death, with a sword in his hands, dressed in a black cloak, with huge black wings. These wings blow with a deathly cold when Thanatos flies to the bed of the dying to cut a lock of hair from his head with his sword and tear out his soul. Next to Thanatos are the gloomy Keres. They fly wildly on their wings across the battlefield. The Keres rejoice as they see the slain heroes fall one after another. With their blood-red lips, they press themselves to the wounds, greedily drinking the hot blood of the slain and tearing their souls from their bodies. Here, at the throne of Hades, is the beautiful young god of sleep, Hypnos. He flies silently on his wings above the earth, with poppy heads in his hands, and pours a soporific drink from his horn. He gently touches people's eyes with his wonderful wand, quietly closes their eyelids, and plunges mortals into a sweet sleep. The mighty god Hypnos cannot be resisted by mortals, gods, or even Zeus himself. Hypnos closes his formidable eyes and plunges him into a deep sleep. The gods of dreams also dwell in the gloomy kingdom of Hades. Among them are gods who give prophetic and joyful dreams, but there are also gods of terrible, oppressive dreams that frighten and torment people. There are also gods of false dreams who mislead people and often lead them to their doom. The realm of the relentless Hades is full of darkness and horror. There, the terrible ghost of Olympus, with donkey's feet, roams in the darkness. It lures people into secluded places in the darkness of night with cunning, drinks all their blood, and devours their still trembling bodies. The monstrous Lamia also roams there. At night, she sneaks into the bedrooms of happy mothers and steals their children to drink their blood. The great goddess Hecate rules over all ghosts and monsters. She has 3 bodies and 3 heads. On moonless nights, she wanders in deep darkness along roads and graves with her entire terrible retinue, surrounded by Stygian dogs. She sends horrors and terrible dreams to the earth and destroys people. Hecate is invoked as an assistant in witchcraft, but she is also the only helper against witchcraft for those who honor her and sacrifice dogs to her at crossroads where 3 roads diverge. Who is Hera? Let's find out. Hera is the goddess of the sky, patroness of marriage, protector of mothers during childbirth. She was especially revered in Sparta, Corinth, Olympia, and Argos, where her famous temple was located. The myths about Hera reflect the position of women in Greece. Just as Greek women did not enjoy equal rights with men and were largely subordinate to their husbands, so Hera is subordinate to her husband Zeus. Traces of totemism have been preserved in the cult of Hera. We know that she was sometimes depicted, for example, with the head of a horse. This alone indicates that Hera is one of the oldest goddesses of Greece. The great goddess Hera, wife of Zeus, the ruler of the gods, patronizes marriage and protects the sanctity and inviolability of marital unions. She sends spouses numerous offspring and blesses mothers during childbirth. After Hera and her brothers and sisters were spewed from the mouth of Cronus, who had been defeated by Zeus, her mother Rhea took her to the edge of the earth, to the gray-haired Oceanus, where she was raised by Thetis. Hera lived far from Olympus for a long time, in peace and quiet. The great thunderer Zeus saw her, fell in love with her, and stole her from Thetis. The gods celebrated the wedding of Zeus and Hera with great pomp. Iris and the Charites dressed Hera in luxurious clothes, and she shone with her youthful, majestic beauty among the assembly of the gods of Olympus, sitting on a golden throne next to Zeus, the great king of gods and men. All the gods offered gifts to the queen Hera, and the goddess Earth Gaia grew a wonderful apple tree with golden fruits from her depths as a gift to Hera. Everything in nature glorified Queen Hera and King Zeus. Hera reigns on high Olympus. Like her husband Zeus, she commands thunder and lightning. At her word, dark rain clouds cover the sky, and with a wave of her hand, she raises terrible storms. The great Hera is beautiful, with flowing hair and lily-white hands. Her crown is adorned with waves of wonderful curls, and her eyes shine with power and calm majesty. The gods honor Hera, and her husband, Zeus, the thunderer, also honors her and often consults with her. But quarrels between Zeus and Hera are not uncommon. Hera often objects to Zeus and argues with him at the councils of the gods. Then the thunderer becomes angry and threatens his wife with punishment. Hera then falls silent and restrains her anger. She remembers how Zeus subjected her to flogging, how he bound her with golden chains and hung her between the earth and the sky, tying 2 heavy anvils to her feet. Hera is powerful. There is no goddess equal to her in power. Majestic, in long, luxurious clothes woven by Athena herself, in a chariot drawn by 2 immortal horses, she descends from Olympus. The chariot is made entirely of silver, the wheels of pure gold, and their spokes gleam with copper. A fragrance spreads across the earth wherever Hera passes. All living things bow down before her, the great queen of Olympus. Now I will tell you about Io, based on Ovid's poem, Metamorphoses. Hera often suffers insults from her husband Zeus. This was the case when Zeus fell in love with the beautiful Io, and in order to hide her from his wife Hera, turned Io into a cow. But this did not save Io. Hera saw Io's snow-white cow and demanded that Zeus give it to her. Zeus could not refuse Hera. Hera, having taken possession of Io, gave her to the 100-eyed Argus to guard. Poor Io suffered, unable to tell anyone about her suffering. Turned into a cow, she was deprived of the gift of speech. Argus, who never slept, guarded Io, and she could not escape from him. Zeus saw her suffering. Calling his son Hermes, he ordered him to kidnap Io. Hermes quickly rushed to the top of the mountain, where the 100-eyed guard watched over Io. He put Argus to sleep with his words. As soon as his 100 eyes closed, Hermes drew his curved sword and cut off Argus's head with one blow. Io was freed. But even this did not save Io from Hera's wrath. She sent a monstrous gadfly. With its sting, the gadfly drove the unfortunate sufferer Io, maddened by torment, from country to country. She found no rest anywhere. She ran further and further in a frenzied flight, and the gadfly flew after her, stinging her body every minute. The gadfly's sting burned Io like red-hot iron. Where did she not run? What countries did she not visit? Finally, after long wanderings, she reached the land of the Scythians, in the far north, the rock to which the Titan Prometheus was chained. He predicted to the unfortunate woman that only in Egypt would she be freed from her torment. Driven by the gadfly, Io rushed on. She endured many torments and saw many dangers before she reached Egypt. There, on the banks of the bountiful Nile, Zeus restored her former appearance, and she gave birth to her son, Epiphus. He was the first king of Egypt, and the progenitor of a great line of heroes, to which the greatest hero of Greece, Heracles, also belonged. Now I will tell you more about Apollo. Apollo is one of the oldest gods of Greece. Traces of totemism are clearly preserved in his cult. For example, in Arcadia, Apollo was worshipped in the form of a ram. Initially, Apollo was the god who protected herds. Gradually, he became more and more the god of light. Later, he came to be regarded as the patron of migrants, the patron of newly founded Greek colonies, and then the patron of art, poetry, and music. That is why in Moscow, on the building of the Bolshoi Academic Theater, there is a statue of Apollo with a lyre in his hands, riding a chariot drawn by 4 horses. In addition, Apollo became the god who predicted the future. His sanctuary in Delphi, where the priestess Pythia gave predictions, was famous throughout the ancient world. These predictions, of course, were made up by priests who knew everything that was happening in Greece, and were composed in such a way that they could be interpreted in one way or another. A prophecy given in Delphi to King Croesus of Lydia during his war with Persia was well known in ancient times. He was told, "If you cross the river Halys, you will destroy a great kingdom." But which kingdom, his own or Persia's, was not specified. How was Apollo born? The god of light, the golden-haired Apollo, was born on the island of Delos. His mother, Latona, pursued by the wrath of the goddess Hera, could find no refuge anywhere. Pursued by the dragon Python, sent by Hera, she wandered all over the world and finally took refuge on Delos, which at that time was tossed about by the waves of the stormy sea. As soon as Latona set foot on Delos, huge pillars rose from the depths of the sea and stopped this desert island. It became immovable in the place where it still stands today. The sea roared around Delos. The rocks of Delos rose gloomily, bare of any vegetation. Only seagulls found refuge on these rocks and filled them with their mournful cries. But then Apollo, the god of light, was born, and streams of bright light spread everywhere. They flooded the rocks of Delos like gold. Everything around blossomed and sparkled. The coastal rocks, Mount Kint, the valley, and the sea. The goddesses gathered on Delos loudly praised the newborn god, offering him ambrosia and nectar. All of nature rejoiced together with the goddesses. Later, Apollo fought with Python and founded the Oracle of Delphi. And this is how it happened. The young, radiant Apollo rushed across the azure sky with a lyre in his hands and a silver bow on his shoulders. Golden arrows clanged loudly in his quiver. Proud and jubilant, Apollo flew high above the earth, threatening all evil, all that was born of darkness. He was heading for the home of the fearsome Python who had pursued his mother, Leto. He wanted to avenge her for all the harm Python had done to her. Apollo quickly reached the gloomy gorge, the home of Python. Rocks towered all around, reaching high into the sky. Darkness reigned in the gorge. At the bottom, a mountain stream rushed by, gray with foam, and mist swirled above the stream. The terrible Python crawled out of his lair. His huge body, covered with scales, twisted between the rocks in countless coils. The rocks and mountains trembled under the weight of his body and shifted from their places. The furious Python laid waste to everything, spreading death all around him. The nymphs and all living creatures fled in terror. Python rose, mighty and furious, opened his terrible mouth, and was ready to devour the golden-haired Apollo. Then the string of a silver bow rang out, and a golden arrow, never missing its mark, flashed through the air, followed by another, then a third. Arrows rained down on Python, and he fell lifeless to the ground. A loud, triumphant song, Paean, rang out from golden-haired Apollo, the conqueror of Python, and the golden strings of the god's lyre echoed it. Apollo buried Python's body in the ground where the sacred Delphi stands, and founded a sanctuary and oracle in Delphi to prophesy the will of his father Zeus to the people. From the high shore, far out at sea, Apollo saw the ship of the Cretan sailors. Disguised as a dolphin, he plunged into the blue sea, caught up with the ship, and rose like a shining star from the waves onto its stern. Apollo brought the ship to the port of the city of Crisa and led the Cretan sailors through the fertile valley, playing the golden lyre to Delphi. He made them the first priests of his sanctuary. The bright, joyful god Apollo knows sorrow, and grief has befallen him. He experienced grief shortly after his victory over Python, when Apollo, proud of his victory, stood over the monster he had slain with his arrows. He saw the young god of love, Eros, standing beside him, drawing his golden bow. Laughing, Apollo said to him, "Why do you need such a formidable weapon, child? Let me send the striking golden arrows with which I just killed Python. Do you want to equal my glory as an archer? Do you want to achieve greater glory than I have?" Offended, Eros proudly replied to Apollo, "Your arrows, Phoebus Apollo, never miss their mark. They strike everyone. But my arrow will strike you." Eros flapped his golden wings, and in the blink of an eye flew up to high Parnassus. There, he took 2 arrows from his quiver, one that pierces the heart and inspires love, with which he pierced Apollo's heart, and the other that kills love, which he shot into the heart of the nymph Daphne, daughter of the river god Peneus. One day, Apollo met the beautiful Daphne and fell in love with her. But as soon as Daphne saw the golden-haired Apollo, she ran away as fast as the wind, for Eros's arrow, which kills love, had pierced her heart. The silver-eyed god hurried after her. "Stop, beautiful nymph," Apollo cried. "Why are you running away from me like a sheep pursued by a wolf, like a dove fleeing from an eagle? I am not your enemy. Look, you have wounded your feet on the sharp thorns of the blackthorn. Oh, wait, stop. I am Apollo, son of Zeus, the thunderer, not a mere mortal shepherd." But the beautiful Daphne ran faster and faster. Apollo rushed after her as if on wings. He was getting closer and closer. Now he would catch up with her. Daphne could feel his breath. Her strength was leaving her. Daphne prayed to her father. "Peneus, Father Peneus, help me. Open up, earth, and swallow me. Oh, take this form from me. It causes me nothing but suffering." No sooner had she said this than her limbs became numb. Bark covered her delicate body, her hair turned into foliage, and her hands, raised to the sky, turned into branches. Apollo stood sadly before the laurel for a long time and finally said, "Let only your greenery adorn my head with a wreath. Let you adorn my lyre and my quiver with your leaves from now on. May your greenery never wither, laurel, remain evergreen." And the laurel rustled softly in response to Apollo with its thick branches, and as if in agreement, bowed its green top. Apollo served King Admetus. Apollo had to purify himself from the sin of spilling Python's blood. After all, he himself purifies people who have committed murder. By Zeus's decision, he went to Thessaly to the beautiful and noble King Admetus. There, he tended the king's flocks and atoned for his sin through this service. When Apollo played his reed flute or golden lyre in the pasture, wild beasts came out of the forest, enchanted by his playing. Panthers and ferocious lions walked peacefully among the flocks. Deer and roe deer gathered at the sound of the flute. Peace and joy reigned all around. Prosperity came to Admetus's house. No one else had such fruit, and his horses and flocks were the best in all of Thessaly. All this was given to him by the golden-haired god. Apollo helped Admetus win the hand of Alcestis, the daughter of King Peleus of Iolcus. Her father promised to give her in marriage only to the man who could harness a lion and a bear to his chariot. Then Apollo endowed his favorite Admetus with invincible strength, and he accomplished Peleus's task. Apollo served Admetus for 8 years, and having completed his penance, returned to Delphi. Apollo lives in Delphi during spring and summer. When autumn comes, the flowers wilt, and the leaves on the trees turn yellow. When the cold winter is already close, covering the top of Parnassus with snow, then Apollo, in his chariot drawn by snow-white swans, flies away to the land of the Hyperboreans, a land that knows no winter, a land of eternal spring. He lives there all winter, when everything in Delphi turns green again, when flowers bloom under the living breath of spring and cover the valley of Crisa with a colorful carpet. The golden-haired Apollo returns on his swans to Delphi to prophesy to the people the will of Zeus, the thunderer. Then Delphi celebrates the return of the god-prophet Apollo from the land of the Hyperboreans. He lives in Delphi throughout the spring and summer, and he also visits his homeland of Delos, where he also has a magnificent sanctuary. In spring and summer, on the slopes of wooded Helicon, where the sacred waters of the Hippocrene spring mysteriously murmur, and on high Parnassus, by the clear waters of the Castalian spring, Apollo leads a dance with the 9 muses. The young, beautiful muses, daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne, are Apollo's constant companions. He leads the choir of muses and accompanies their singing with his golden lyre. Apollo walks majestically in front of the choir of muses, crowned with a laurel wreath, followed by all 9 muses. Calliope, the muse of epic poetry. Euterpe, the muse of lyric poetry. Erato, the muse of love songs. Melpomene, the muse of tragedy. Thalia, the muse of comedy. Terpsichore, the muse of dance. Clio, the muse of history. Urania, the muse of astronomy. And Polyhymnia, the muse of sacred hymns. Their choir resounds solemnly, and all of nature, as if enchanted, listens to their divine singing. When Apollo, accompanied by the muses, appears among the gods on bright Olympus, and the sounds of his lyre and the singing of the muses are heard, then all on Olympus falls silent. Ares forgets the noise of bloody battles. Lightning does not flash in the hands of Zeus, the storm-bringer. The gods forget their quarrels, and peace and silence reign on Olympus. Even Zeus's eagle lowers its mighty wings and closes its sharp eyes. Its menacing cawing is no longer heard, and it sleeps quietly on Zeus's staff. In complete silence, the strings of Apollo's lyre sound solemnly. When Apollo cheerfully strikes the golden strings of his lyre, a bright, shining dance moves through the banquet hall of the gods. The muses, the Charites, the eternally young Aphrodite, Ares with Hermes, all participate in the merry dance, and at the head of them all walks the majestic maiden, Apollo's sister, the beautiful Artemis. Bathed in streams of golden light, the young gods dance to the sounds of Apollo's lyre. Apollo is formidable in his wrath, and his golden arrows know no mercy. They have struck down many. Among those who perished were the sons of Aloeus, Aut, and Ephialtes, who were proud of their strength and refused to submit to anyone. Even in early childhood, they were famous for their enormous height, their strength, and their boundless courage. While still young men, Aut and Ephialtes began to threaten the Olympian gods. "Oh, just let us grow up. Just let us reach the full measure of our supernatural strength. We will then pile Mount Olympus, Mount Pelion, and Mount Ossa on top of each other and climb them to reach the sky. We will then kidnap Hera and Artemis from you Olympians." Thus, like the Titans, the rebellious sons of Aloeus threatened the Olympians. They would have carried out their threat, for they bound the formidable god of war, Ares, with chains, and he languished in a copper dungeon for 30 months. The insatiable Ares would have languished in captivity for a long time yet, had not the swift Hermes kidnapped him, deprived of his strength. Aut and Ephialtes were mighty. Apollo did not heed their threats. The far-shooting god drew his silver bow. His golden arrows flashed through the air like sparks of flame, and Aut and Ephialtes fell, pierced by the arrows. Apollo severely punished the Phrygian, Satyr Marsyas, for daring to compete with him in music. Kythara Apollo could not tolerate such insolence. Once, while wandering through the fields of Phrygia, Marsyas found a reed flute. It had been discarded by the goddess Athena, who noticed that playing the flute she herself had invented disfigured her divinely beautiful face. Athena cursed her invention and said, "Let the one who picks up this flute be severely punished." Unaware of what Athena had said, Marsyas picked up the flute and soon learned to play it so well that everyone listened to this simple music. Marsyas became proud and challenged Apollo, the patron of music, to a contest. Apollo appeared at the challenge in a long, luxurious chlamys, wearing a laurel wreath and holding a golden lyre in his hands. How insignificant Marsyas, the inhabitant of forests and fields, seemed before the majestic, beautiful Apollo with his pitiful reed flute. How could he produce such wonderful sounds from his flute as those that flew from the golden strings of the lyre of Apollo, the leader of the Muses? Apollo won. Enraged by the challenge, he ordered the unfortunate Marsyas to be hung by his hands and his skin to be flayed while he was still alive. Thus, Marsyas paid for his audacity. Marsyas' skin was hung in a grotto near Cyllene in Phrygia, and it was said that it always began to move, as if dancing, when the sounds of the Phrygian reed flute reached the grotto, and remained motionless when the majestic sounds of the lyre were heard. But Apollo is not only an avenger. He does not only bring death with his golden arrows. He also heals diseases. Apollo's son Asclepius is the god of doctors and the art of medicine. The wise centaur Chiron raised Asclepius on the slopes of Pelion. Under his guidance, Asclepius became such a skilled physician that he surpassed even his teacher Chiron. Asclepius not only healed all diseases, but even brought the dead back to life. This angered Hades, ruler of the underworld, and Zeus, god of thunder, as he had violated the law and order established by Zeus on earth. An angry Zeus hurled his lightning bolt and struck Asclepius, but the people deified Apollo's son as a god of healing. They erected many shrines to him, including the famous sanctuary of Asclepius in Epidaurus. Apollo was revered throughout Greece. The Greeks honored him as the god of light, the god who cleansed man of the defilement of spilled blood, as the god who prophesied the will of his father Zeus, who punished, sent diseases, and healed them. Young Greek men revered him as their patron. Apollo is the patron of seafaring, helping to establish new colonies and cities. Artists, poets, singers, and musicians are under the special protection of the leader of the choir of muses, Apollo Kithaeroid. Apollo is equal to Zeus himself in the worship he received from the Greeks. Now I will tell you about Artemis. Artemis is one of the oldest goddesses in Greece. As one might expect, Artemis, the goddess of hunting, was originally the patroness of animals, both domestic and wild. In ancient times, Artemis herself was sometimes depicted as an animal, such as a bear. This is how Artemis Brauronia was depicted in Attica, not far from Athens. Later, Artemis became the goddess who protected mothers during childbirth, granting them safe deliveries. As the sister of Apollo, the god of light, she was also considered the goddess of the moon, and was identified with the goddess Selene. The cult of Artemis was one of the most widespread in Greece. Her temple in the city of Ephesus, Artemis of Ephesus, was famous. The eternally young, beautiful goddess was born on Delos at the same time as her brother, the golden-haired Apollo. They are twins. The most sincere love and the closest friendship unite the brother and sister. They deeply love their mother, Leto. Artemis gives life to all. She cares for everything that lives on earth and grows in the forest and in the fields. She cares for wild animals, herds of domestic livestock, and people. She causes grass, flowers, and trees to grow. And she blesses births, weddings, and marriages. Greek women bring rich offerings to Artemis, the glorious daughter of Zeus, who blesses and brings happiness in marriage, heals, and sends illness. Eternally young and beautiful as a clear day, the goddess Artemis, with a bow and quiver on her shoulders and a hunter's spear in her hands, joyfully hunts in shady forests and sun-drenched fields. A noisy crowd of nymphs accompanies her, and she, majestic, in short hunter's clothing that reaches only to her knees, quickly rushes along the wooded slopes of the mountains. Neither the timid deer, nor the shy doe, nor the angry boar hiding in the reeds can escape her unerring arrows. Artemis's nymph companions hurry after her. Cheerful laughter, shouts, and the barking of a pack of dogs echo far into the mountains, answered by the loud mountain echo. When the goddess tires of hunting, she hurries with the nymphs to sacred Delphi, to her beloved brother, the archer Apollo. There she rests. To the divine sounds of Apollo's golden lyre, she dances with the muses and nymphs. Artemis leads the dance, slender and beautiful. She is more beautiful than all the nymphs and muses, and a head taller than them. Artemis also loves to rest in cool, green-covered grottos, far from the eyes of mortals. Woe to those who disturb her peace. Thus perished the young Actaeon, son of Autonoe, daughter of Cadmus, king of Thebes. Now I will tell you about Actaeon from Ovid's poem, Metamorphoses. Once upon a time, Actaeon was hunting with his companions in the forests of Cithaeron. It was a hot midday. The weary hunters settled down to rest in the shade of the dense forest, while the young Actaeon separated from them and went to seek coolness in the valleys of Cithaeron. He came upon the green, flowering valley of Gargaphia, dedicated to the goddess Artemis. Plane trees, myrtles, and firs grew luxuriantly in the valley. Slender cypresses towered over it like dark arrows, and green grass was dotted with flowers. A clear stream murmured in the valley. Silence, peace, and coolness reigned everywhere. On the steep slope of the mountain, Actaeon saw a charming grotto, completely covered with greenery. He went to this grotto, not knowing that it was often used as a place of rest by Zeus's daughter, Artemis. When Actaeon approached the grotto, Artemis had just entered it. She gave her bow and arrows to one of the nymphs and prepared to bathe. The nymphs took off the goddess's sandals, tied her hair in a knot, and were about to go to the stream to scoop up some cold water when Actaeon appeared at the entrance to the grotto. The nymphs cried out loudly when they saw Actaeon entering. They surrounded Artemis, wanting to hide her from the gaze of a mortal. Just as the rising sun sets the clouds ablaze with purple fire, so the goddess's face flushed with anger, her eyes flashed with rage, and she became even more beautiful. Artemis was angry that Actaeon had disturbed her peace, and in her anger, she turned the unfortunate Actaeon into a slender deer. Branchy antlers grew on Actaeon's head. His legs and arms turned into deer legs. his neck stretched out, his ears sharpened, and spotted fur covered his entire body. The frightened deer turned and fled. Actaeon saw his reflection in a stream. He wanted to cry out, "Oh, woe is me!" But he had lost the power of speech. Tears rolled from his eyes, but from the eyes of a deer. Only his human mind remained intact. What should he do? Where should he run? Actaeon's dogs caught the scent of the deer. They did not recognize their master and rushed after him with furious barking. Through the valleys, along the gorges of Cthaeron, over the mountain slopes, through the forests and fields, the beautiful deer ran like the wind, throwing his branched antlers over his back, and the dogs rushed after him. The dogs drew closer and closer, and finally caught up with him, their sharp teeth sinking into the body of the unfortunate Actaeon deer. Actaeon wanted to cry out, "Oh, spare me! It is I, Actaeon, your master." But only a groan escaped from the deer's chest, and in that groan could be heard the sound of a human voice. The deer Actaeon fell to his knees. Grief, horror, and supplication were visible in his eyes. Death was inevitable. The enraged dogs tore his body to pieces. Actaeon's companions, who had arrived on the scene, regretted that he was not with them on such a successful hunt. The dogs hunted down the wonderful deer. Actaeon's companions did not know who this deer was. Thus perished Actaeon, who had disturbed the peace of the goddess Artemis, the only mortal who had seen the heavenly beauty of the daughter of Zeus, the Thunderer, and Leto. Now I will tell you about Athena Palladia. Athena is one of the most revered goddesses in Greece. She played a major role in Greek folk epics. Athena is the protector of cities. In Homer's Troy, there was a statue of Athena, supposedly fallen from the sky, the so-called Palladium. It was believed to protect Troy. With the growth of Greek culture, Athena also became the patroness of science. The goddess Athena Pallada was born of Zeus himself. Zeus, the Thunderer, knew that the goddess of wisdom, Metis, would have 2 children, a daughter, Athena, and a son of extraordinary intelligence and strength. The Moirai, the goddesses of fate, revealed to Zeus the secret that the son of the goddess Metis would overthrow him and take away his power over the world. The great Zeus was frightened. To avoid the terrible fate that the Moirai had promised him, he lulled the goddess Metis to sleep with sweet words and swallowed her before she gave birth to her daughter, the goddess Athena. After some time, Zeus felt a terrible headache. He then summoned his son Hephaestus and ordered him to split open his head to get rid of the unbearable pain and noise in his head. Hephaestus swung his axe and with a powerful blow split Zeus's skull without damaging it. And out of the Thunderer's head came the mighty warrior goddess Athena Pallas, fully armed, wearing a shining helmet with a spear and shield. She appeared before the astonished eyes of the Olympian gods. She shook her glittering spear menacingly. Her war cry rolled far across the sky, and the bright Olympus shook to its foundations. Beautiful and majestic, she stood before the gods. Athena's blue eyes burned with divine wisdom, and she shone with a wonderful, heavenly, divine beauty. The gods praised his beloved daughter, born from the head of her father, Zeus, the protector of cities, the goddess of wisdom and knowledge, the invincible warrior, Athena Pallas. Athena protects the heroes of Greece, gives them her wise advice, and helps them invincible in times of danger. She protects cities, fortresses, and their walls. She gives wisdom and knowledge, teaches people arts and crafts. And the girls of Greece honor Athena for teaching them needlework. No mortal or goddess can surpass Athena in the art of weaving. Everyone knows how dangerous it is to compete with her in this, knowing how Arachne, daughter of Idmon, paid the price for wanting to be better than Athena in this art. Who is Arachne? I will tell you based on Ovid's poem, Metamorphoses. Arachne was famous throughout Lydia for her artistry. Nymphs often gathered from the slopes of Tmolus and the banks of the gold-bearing Pactolus to admire her work. Arachne spun threads like mist into fabrics as transparent as air. She was proud that there was no one in the world who could match her skill in weaving. Once she exclaimed, "Let Athena Pallas herself come and compete with me. She cannot defeat me. I am not afraid of that." And so, in the guise of a gray-haired, hunched old woman leaning on a staff, the goddess Athena appeared before Arachne and said to her, "Old age does not bring only evil, Arachne. The years bring experience. Listen to my advice. Strive to surpass only mortals with your art. Do not challenge the goddess to a contest. Humbly beg her to forgive you for your arrogant words. The goddess forgives those who beg." Arachne let the fine thread slip from her hands. Her eyes flashed with anger. Confident in her art, she replied boldly, "You are foolish, old woman. Old age has robbed you of your reason. Read such instructions to your daughters-in-law and daughters. But leave me alone. I can give myself advice. What I have said shall be done. Why does Athena not come? Why does she not want to compete with me?" "I am here, Arachne!" exclaimed the goddess, taking on her true form. The nymphs and Lydian women bowed low before Zeus's beloved daughter and praised her. Only Arachne remained silent. Just as the sky glows red in the early morning, when the rosy-fingered Eos takes flight on her shining wings, so Athena's face flushed with anger. Arachne stands by her decision, still passionately desiring to compete with Athena. She does not foresee the imminent doom that awaits her. The contest begins. The great goddess Athena weaves the majestic Acropolis of Athens in the center of her veil, depicting her dispute with Poseidon over power in Attica. The 12 bright gods of Olympus, including her father, Zeus the Thunderer, sit as judges in this dispute. Poseidon, the shaker of the earth, raised his trident, struck the rock with it, and a salty spring gushed forth from the barren rock. Athena, wearing a helmet, shield, and aegis, shook her spear and thrust it deep into the ground. A sacred olive tree grew from the earth. The gods awarded victory to Athena, recognizing her gift to Attica as more valuable. In the corners, the goddess depicted how the gods punish people for disobedience, and around it, she wove a wreath of olive leaves. Arachne, on the other hand, depicted on her veil many scenes from the lives of the gods, in which the gods appear weak and possessed by human passions. Around it, Arachne wove a wreath of flowers entwined with ivy, Arachne's work was the height of perfection, equal in beauty to Athena's. But her images showed disrespect for the gods, even contempt. Athena was terribly angry. She tore Arachne's work apart and struck her with her shuttle. Poor Arachne could not bear the shame. She twisted a rope into a noose and hanged herself. Athena freed Arachne from the noose and said to her, "The scene of Athena's dispute with Poseidon was depicted on the pediment of the Parthenon temple in Athens by the famous Greek sculptor Phidias, 5th century BC. The pediment has survived to this day in a badly damaged state. Live, rebellious one, but you will hang forever and weave forever, and this punishment will continue in your descendants." Athena sprinkled Arachne with the juice of a magical herb, and immediately her body shrank. Her thick hair fell from her head, and she turned into a spider. Since then, the spider Arachne has been hanging in her web and weaving it forever, as she did during her lifetime. Now let's get acquainted with Hermes. Hermes, Mercury to the Romans, is one of the oldest gods of Greece. He was originally the god and patron of herds, and was sometimes depicted with a ram in his arms. In Homer's epic, Hermes is primarily the messenger of the gods and the guide of the souls of the dead to the underworld of Hades. Hermes is the patron of travelers. With the development of trade, Hermes became the patron god of trade, and, consequently, of cunning, deception, and even theft. In addition, Hermes is the patron of youth, athletes, and gymnastics. His statues were placed in palaestrae and gymnasiums, institutions where wrestling, boxing, discus throwing, running, jumping, etc. were taught. After Alexander the Great conquered the entire Persian Empire, late 4th century BC, when Greek states emerged in Asia and Egypt, Hermes was identified with the Egyptian god of science and magic, Thoth, and also became the god of magic and astrology, i.e., divination by the stars. He began to be called the thrice great god Hermes. In a grotto on Mount Cyllene in Arcadia, the son of Zeus and Maia, the god Hermes, messenger of the gods, was born. With the speed of thought, he travels from Olympus to the farthest reaches of the world in his winged sandals, with his caduceus staff in his hands. Hermes guards the roads, and Hermes dedicated to him can be seen placed along roads, at crossroads, and at the entrances to houses throughout ancient Greece. He protects travelers on their journeys in life, and he also leads the souls of the dead on their final journey to the sad kingdom of Hades. With his magic staff, he closes people's eyes and puts them to sleep. Hermes is the patron god of roads and travelers, and the god of trade and commerce. He brings profit in trade and sends wealth to people. Hermes invented measures, numbers, and the alphabet, and he taught all this to people. He is also the god of eloquence, but at the same time of cunning and deception. No one can surpass him in dexterity, cunning, and even theft, as he is an extremely clever thief. It was he who once stole Zeus's scepter, Poseidon's trident, Apollo's golden arrows and bow, and Ares' sword as a joke. No sooner was Hermes born in the cool grotto of Cylene than he already planned his first prank. He decided to steal cows from the silver-eyed Apollo, who was grazing the gods' herds in the valley of Pieria in Macedonia. Quietly, so that his mother would not notice, Hermes wriggled out of his swaddling clothes, jumped out of his cradle, and crept to the exit of the grotto. At the grotto itself, he saw a turtle, caught it, and made his first lyre from the turtle's shell and 3 branches, stringing it with sweet-sounding strings. Hermes secretly returned to the cave, hid the lyre in his cradle, and quickly left again, rushing like the wind to Pieria. There, he stole 15 cows from Apollo's herd, tied reeds and branches to their legs to cover their tracks, and quickly drove the cows toward the Peloponnese. Late in the evening, as Hermes was driving the cows through Boeotia, he met an old man working in his vineyard. "Take one of these cows for yourself," Hermes said to him, "but don't tell anyone that you saw me driving the cows here." The old man, delighted with the generous gift, promised Hermes to keep quiet and not show anyone where he had driven the cows. Hermes went on his way, but he had not gone far when he wanted to test the old man to see if he would keep his word. Hiding the cows in the forest and changing his appearance, he returned and asked the old man, "Tell me, did a boy drive cows here? If you show me where he drove them, I will give you a bull and a cow." The old man did not hesitate for long whether to tell or not, as he really wanted to get another bull and cow, and he showed Hermes where the boy had driven the cows. Hermes was very angry with the old man for breaking his word, and in his anger, he turned him into a mute rock so that he would remain silent forever and remember that one must keep one's word. After that, Hermes returned for the cows, and I quickly drove them on. Finally, he brought them to Pylos. He sacrificed 2 cows to the gods, then destroyed all traces of the sacrifice, and hid the remaining cows in a cave, leading them in backwards so that the tracks of the cows would lead out of the cave, not into it. Having done all this, Hermes calmly returned to the grotto to his mother Maia, and quietly lay down in his cradle, wrapped in swaddling clothes. But Maia noticed her son's absence. She reproached him, saying, "You have done a bad thing. Why did you steal Apollo's cows? He will be angry. You know how terrible Apollo is in his wrath. Are you not afraid of his unerring arrows?" "I am not afraid of Apollo," Hermes replied to his mother. "Let him be angry. If he decides to hurt you or me, I will plunder his entire sanctuary in Delphi in retaliation, steal all his tripods, gold, silver, and clothes." Apollo had already noticed the disappearance of the cows and set out to search for them. He could not find them anywhere. Finally, an oracle bird led him to Pylos, but even there, golden-haired Apollo did not find his cows. He did not enter the cave where the cows were hidden, for the tracks led not into the cave, but out of it. Finally, after a long and fruitless search, he came to the grotto of Maia. Hearing Apollo approaching, Hermes burrowed deeper into his cradle and wrapped himself more tightly in his swaddling clothes. Angry Apollo entered the grotto of Maia and saw Hermes lying in his cradle with an innocent face. He began to reproach Hermes for stealing the cows and demanded that he return them, but Hermes denied everything. He assured Apollo that he had no intention of stealing his cows and had no idea where they were. "Listen, boy," Apollo exclaimed in anger. "I will cast you into the gloomy Tartarus, and neither your father nor your mother will save you if you do not return my cows to me." "O son of Latona," replied Hermes, "I have not seen, I do not know, and I have not heard from others about your cows. Am I busy with this? I have other business now, other concerns. I care only about sleep, my mother's milk, and my diapers. No, I swear, I have not even seen the thief of your cows." No matter how angry Apollo was, he could not get anything out of the cunning, crafty Hermes. Finally, the golden-haired god pulled Hermes out of his cradle and forced him to go in his diapers to their father, Zeus, so that he could settle their dispute. Both gods came to Olympus. No matter how Hermes twisted and turned, no matter how cunning he was, Zeus still ordered him to give the stolen cows back to Apollo. Hermes led Apollo from Olympus to Pylos, taking with him the lyre he had made from a turtle shell. In Pylos, he showed where the cows were hidden. While Apollo was driving the cows out of the cave, Hermes sat down on a rock near it and played the lyre. Wonderful sounds filled the valley and the sandy shore of the sea. Apollo listened to Hermes' playing with amazement and delight. He gave Hermes the stolen cows in exchange for his lyre. So captivated was he by the sounds of the lyre. And Hermes, to amuse himself while herding cows, invented the flute, so beloved by the shepherds of Greece. Cunning, agile, swift as thought, the beautiful son of Maia and Zeus, Hermes, who proved his cunning and agility in early childhood, also served as the embodiment of youthful strength. Statues of him stood everywhere in the gymnasiums. He is the god of young athletes. They invoked him before wrestling matches and sprinting competitions. Everyone in ancient Greece revered Hermes. Travelers, orators, merchants, athletes, and even thieves. Now listen to the story of Ares. He is the god of war, bringing death and destruction, the ancient Greek ideal of a brave warrior. Compared to other Greek gods, he was less revered. This is reflected in the fact that Zeus himself, according to the Greeks, dislikes his son Ares, who constantly stirs up strife, destroys people, and rejoices when human blood flows like a river during battle. The god of war, the fierce Ares, is the son of Zeus, the thunderer, and Hera. Zeus does not love him. He often tells his son that he is the most hated of all the gods of Olympus. Zeus does not love his son for his bloodthirstiness. If Ares were not his son, he would have long ago cast him into the gloomy Tartarus, where the Titans languish. Only fierce battles delight the heart of the ferocious Ares. Frenzied, he rushes amid the clamor of weapons, the cries and groans of battle between the combatants, in shining armor with a huge shield. Following him are his sons, Deimos and Phobos, terror and fear, and alongside them are Eris, the goddess of discord, and Ennuo, the goddess of murder. The battle rages and roars. Ares rejoices. Warriors fall with a groan. Ares triumphs when he strikes a warrior with his terrible sword, and hot blood pours onto the ground. He strikes indiscriminately to the right and left. A pile of bodies surrounds the cruel god. Ares is fierce, frenzied, and formidable, but victory does not always accompany him. Ares often has to yield on the battlefield to the warlike daughter of Zeus, Athena Pallas. She defeats Ares with wisdom and calm awareness of her strength. Mortal heroes also often prevail over Ares, especially when they are aided by the bright-eyed Athena Pallas. Thus, the hero Diomedes struck Ares with a bronze spear under the walls of Troy. Athena herself directed the blow. The terrible cry of the wounded god spread far and wide among the Trojan and Greek armies. As if 10,000 warriors had cried out at once, entering into a fierce battle, so cried out Ares, covered in bronze armor, in pain. The Greeks and Trojans shuddered in horror, and the frenzied Ares rushed off, shrouded in a dark cloud, covered in blood, complaining to his father, Zeus, about Athena. But his father, Zeus, did not listen to his complaints. He does not love his son, who enjoys only strife, battles, and murder. Even when Ares' wife, the most beautiful of the goddesses, Aphrodite, comes to her husband's aid when he meets Athena in the heat of battle, it is the beloved daughter of Zeus, the thunderer, who emerges victorious. The warrior, Athena, strikes the beautiful goddess of love, Aphrodite, to the ground with a single blow. With tears in her eyes, the eternally young, wonderfully beautiful Aphrodite ascends to Olympus, followed by Athena's triumphant laughter and mockery. Aphrodite was originally the goddess of the sky, bringing rain, and apparently also the goddess of the sea. The myth of Aphrodite and her cult were strongly influenced by Eastern influences, mainly the cult of the Phoenician goddess Astarte. Gradually, Aphrodite became the goddess of love. The god of love, Eros, Cupid, is her son. The goddess Aphrodite is not a pampered, frivolous goddess who interferes in bloody battles. She awakens love in the hearts of gods and mortals. Thanks to this power, she reigns over the whole world. No one can escape her power, not even the gods. Only the warrior Athena, Hestia, and Artemis are not subject to her power. Tall, slender, with delicate features and soft waves of golden hair, like a crown resting on her beautiful head, Aphrodite is the embodiment of divine beauty and unfading youth. When she walks in the splendor of her beauty, in fragrant clothes, the sun shines brighter and the flowers bloom more luxuriantly. Wild forest animals run to her from the thickets of the forest. Birds flock to her when she walks through the forest. Lions, panthers, leopards, and bears gently caress her. Aphrodite walks calmly among the wild beasts, proud of her radiant beauty. Her companions, the Horae and Charites, goddesses of beauty and grace, serve her. They dress the goddess in luxurious clothes, comb her golden hair, and crown her head with a sparkling diadem. Aphrodite, daughter of Uranus, was born near the island of Cythera from the snow-white foam of the sea waves. A light, caressing breeze carried her to the island of Cyprus. There, the young Horae surrounded the goddess of love who had emerged from the sea waves. They dressed her in gold-woven clothes and crowned her with a wreath of fragrant flowers. Wherever Aphrodite stepped, flowers bloomed luxuriantly. The air was filled with fragrance. Eros and Himeros led the wonderful goddess to Olympus. The gods greeted her loudly. Since then, golden Aphrodite, eternally young, and the most beautiful of the goddesses, has always lived among the gods of Olympus. Aphrodite grants happiness to those who serve her faithfully. Thus, she granted happiness to Pygmalion, the great Cypriot artist. Pygmalion hated women and lived a solitary life, avoiding marriage. One day, he made a statue of a girl of extraordinary beauty out of shiny white ivory. The statue stood in the artist's workshop as if it were alive. It seemed to breathe, as if it were about to move, walk, and speak. The artist admired his work for hours, and finally, fell in love with the statue he had created. He gave her precious necklaces, bracelets, and earrings, dressed her in luxurious clothes, and adorned her head with wreaths of flowers. How often Pygmalion whispered, "Oh, if only you were alive. If only you could answer my words. Oh, how happy I would be." But the statue was silent. The days of celebration in honor of Aphrodite arrived. Pygmalion sacrificed a white heifer with gilded horns to the goddess of love. He stretched out his hands to the goddess and whispered in prayer, "O eternal God, and you, golden Aphrodite, if you can grant everything to those who pray, then give me a wife as beautiful as the statue of the girl I made myself." Pygmalion did not dare to ask the gods to bring his statue to life, for he feared that such a request would anger the Olympian gods. The sacrificial flame blazed brightly before the image of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. In this way, the goddess seemed to let Pygmalion know that the gods had heard his plea. The artist returned home. He approached the statue, and oh joy, oh happiness, the statue had come to life. Her heart was beating, and her eyes were shining with life. Thus, the goddess Aphrodite gave Pygmalion a beautiful wife. But those who do not honor golden Aphrodite, who reject her gifts, who oppose her power, are mercilessly punished by the goddess of love. Thus she punished the son of the river god Cephissus and the nymph Lauriona, the beautiful but cold and proud Narcissus. He loved no one but himself, considering only himself worthy of love. Once, when he got lost in a dense forest while hunting, the nymph Echo saw him. The nymph could not speak to Narcissus herself. She was burdened by the punishment of the goddess Hera. Echo had to remain silent, and she could only answer questions by repeating their last words. Echo looked with delight at the slender, handsome young man, hidden from him by the thicket. Narcissus looked around, not knowing where to go, and shouted loudly, "Hey, who's there?" "Here," Echo replied loudly. "Come here," Narcissus shouted. "Here," Echo replied. The beautiful Narcissus looked around in amazement. There was no one there. Surprised by this, he exclaimed loudly, "Come here, quickly!" And Echo responded joyfully, "Come to me!" Reaching out her arms, the nymph from the forest hurried toward Narcissus. But the beautiful young man pushed her away angrily. He hurried away from the nymph and disappeared into the dark forest. The rejected nymph hid in the impenetrable thicket of the forest. She suffered from her love for Narcissus, showed herself to no one, and only responded sadly to every cry of the unhappy Echo. Narcissus remained as proud and self-loving as ever. He rejected everyone's love. His pride made many nymphs unhappy. And once, one of the nymphs he had rejected exclaimed, "Love too, Narcissus, and may the person you love not return your love." The nymph's wish came true. The goddess of love, Aphrodite, was angry that Narcissus rejected her gifts and punished him. One spring day, while hunting, Narcissus came to a stream and wanted to drink some cold water. Never before had a shepherd or mountain goats touched the waters of this stream. Never before had a broken branch fallen into it. Not even the wind had carried the petals of lush flowers into it. Its water was clear and transparent. Like a mirror, it reflected everything around it. The bushes growing along the bank, the slender cypress trees, and the blue sky. Narcissus bent over the stream, leaning his hands on a rock protruding from the water, and saw his entire reflection in the stream, in all its beauty. It was then that Aphrodite's punishment befell him. He gazed in amazement at his reflection in the water, and a strong love took hold of him. With eyes full of love, he looked at his image in the water, which beckoned to him, called to him, and stretched out its arms to him. Narcissus leaned toward the mirror of water to kiss his reflection, but kissed only the cold, clear water of the stream. Narcissus forgot everything. He did not leave the stream. He admired himself without interruption. He does not eat, drink, or sleep. Finally, in despair, Narcissus exclaims, stretching out his hands to his reflection, "Oh, who has suffered so cruelly? We are separated, not by mountains, not by seas, but only by a strip of water. And yet we cannot be together. Come out of the stream." Narcissus pondered, looking at his reflection in the water. Suddenly, a terrible thought came to his mind, and he whispered quietly to his reflection, leaning toward the water, "Oh, woe! I fear I have fallen in love with myself. For you are me. I love myself. I feel that I have little time left to live. Barely blossomed, I will wither and descend into the gloomy realm of shadows. Death does not frighten me. Death will bring an end to the torments of love." Narcissus's strength is leaving him. He is turning pale and already feels death approaching, but still cannot tear himself away from his reflection. Narcissus weeps. His tears fall into the clear waters of the stream. Ripples spread across the mirror-like surface of the water, and the beautiful image disappears. Narcissus cries out in fear, "Oh, where are you? Come back! Stay! Don't leave me! It's cruel! Oh, let me at least look at you!" But now the water is calm again. The reflection reappears, and Narcissus stares at it again, without looking away. He melts like dew on flowers in the rays of the hot sun. The unhappy nymph Echo sees how Narcissus is suffering. She still loves him. Narcissus's suffering pains her heart. "Oh, woe!" exclaims Narcissus. "Oh, woe!" replies Echo. Finally, exhausted, Narcissus cries out in a weak voice, looking at his reflection, "Farewell." And even more quietly, the nymph Echo's response is barely audible. "Farewell." Narcissus's head bowed to the green grass on the shore, and the darkness of death covered his eyes. Narcissus died. The young nymphs wept in the forest, and Echo wept. The nymphs prepared a grave for the young Narcissus, but when they came for his body, they did not find it. In the place where Narcissus's head had fallen on the grass, a white, fragrant flower grew. The flower of death. They call it Narcissus. But the goddess of love, who punished Narcissus so severely, knew the torments of love herself, and she had to mourn her beloved Adonis. She loved the son of the king of Cyprus, Adonis. No mortal could match him in beauty. He was even more beautiful than the Olympian gods. Aphrodite forgot about Patmos and the blossoming Kythera for him. Adonis was dearer to her than even the bright Olympus. She spent all her time with the young Adonis. She hunted with him in the mountains and forests of Cyprus, like the maiden Artemis. Aphrodite forgot about her golden jewelry and her beauty. Under the scorching rays of the sun, and in bad weather, she hunted hares, timid deer, and chamois, avoiding hunting fierce lions and boars. She asked Adonis to avoid the dangers of hunting lions, bears, and boars, so that no misfortune would befall him. The goddess rarely left the king's son, and when she did, she always begged him to remember her requests. Once, in Aphrodite's absence, Adonis's dogs attacked the trail of a huge boar while hunting. They raised the beast and chased it with furious barking. Adonis rejoiced at such rich prey. He did not foresee that this would be his last hunt. The barking of the dogs grew closer, and suddenly the huge boar flashed among the bushes. Adonis was already preparing to pierce the enraged boar with his spear, when suddenly the boar rushed at him and mortally wounded Aphrodite's beloved with its huge fangs. Adonis died from his terrible wound. When Aphrodite learned of Adonis's death, filled with inexpressible grief, she herself went to the mountains of Cyprus to search for the body of her beloved youth. Aphrodite walked along steep mountain slopes, among gloomy gorges, along the edges of deep precipices. Sharp rocks and thorns from the blackthorn bush wounded the goddess's delicate feet. Drops of her blood fell to the ground, leaving a trail wherever the goddess walked. Finally, Aphrodite found Adonis's body. She wept bitterly over the beautiful young man who had died so young. To preserve his memory forever, the goddess ordered a delicate anemone to grow from Adonis's blood. And where drops of blood fell from the goddess's wounded feet, lush roses grew everywhere, scarlet like Aphrodite's blood. Zeus, the thunderer, took pity on the goddess of love's grief and ordered his brother Hades and his wife Persephone to release Adonis from the sad realm of the dead every year. Since then, Adonis has remained in Hades' realm for 6 months and lived on earth with the goddess Aphrodite for 6 months. All of nature rejoices when Adonis, the young, beautiful favorite of golden Aphrodite, returns to earth to the bright rays of the sun. The beautiful Aphrodite reigns over the world. Like Zeus, the thunderer, she has a messenger through whom she carries out her will. This messenger of Aphrodite is her son Eros, a cheerful, mischievous, cunning, and sometimes cruel boy. Eros flies on his shiny golden wings over the lands and seas, swift and light as a breeze. In his hands, he holds a small golden bow, and over his shoulders hangs a quiver of arrows. No one is safe from these golden arrows. Eros never misses his target. As an archer, he is second only to the golden-haired Apollo himself. When Eros hits his target, his eyes shine with joy. He throws back his curly head triumphantly and laughs loudly. Eros's arrows bring joy and happiness, but they often bring suffering, the torments of love, and even death. These arrows caused no small amount of suffering to Apollo himself, the golden-haired, and to Zeus, the cloud-gatherer. Zeus knew how much grief and evil the son of golden Aphrodite would bring to the world. He wanted him to be killed at birth. But how could his mother allow that? She hid Eros in an impenetrable forest. And there, in the forest wilderness, 2 ferocious lionesses nursed little Eros with their milk. Eros grew up, and now he roams the world, young and beautiful, sowing happiness, sorrow, good, and evil with his arrows. Aphrodite has another helper and companion, the young god of marriage, Hymen. He flies on his snow-white wings in front of wedding processions. The flame of his wedding torch burns brightly. Choirs of girls call out during Hymen's wedding, begging him to bless the marriage of the young couple and bring joy into their lives. Who is Hephaestus? Hephaestus, son of Zeus and Hera, god of fire, god of blacksmiths, unmatched in the art of forging, was born on bright Olympus as a weak and lame child. The great Hera was enraged when she was shown her ugly, frail son. She grabbed him and threw him down from Olympus to a distant land. The unfortunate child flew through the air for a long time and finally fell into the waves of the boundless sea. The sea goddesses Eurynome, daughter of the great ocean, and Thetis, daughter of the wise sea elder Nereus, took pity on him. They picked up little Hephaestus, who had fallen into the sea, and carried him deep beneath the waters of the gray ocean. There, in an azure grotto, they raised Hephaestus. The god Hephaestus grew up ugly and lame, but with powerful hands, a broad chest, and a muscular neck. What a wonderful artist he was in his blacksmithing craft. He forged many magnificent gold and silver ornaments for his foster mothers, Eurynome and Thetis. He harbored anger toward his mother, the goddess Hera, for a long time, and finally decided to take revenge on her for throwing him off Mount Olympus. He forged a golden chair of extraordinary beauty and sent it to Mount Olympus as a gift to his mother. The wife of Zeus, the thunderer, was delighted when she saw the wonderful gift. Indeed, only the queen of gods and men could sit on a chair of such extraordinary beauty. But, oh horror! As soon as Hera sat down in the chair, she was bound by unbreakable chains and found herself chained to the chair. The gods rushed to her aid. In vain. None of them was able to free Queen Hera. The gods realized that only Hephaestus, who had forged the chair, could free his great mother. They immediately sent the god Hermes, the messenger of the gods, to the godsmith. Hermes rushed like a whirlwind to the edge of the world, to the shores of the ocean. In the blink of an eye, he flew over the land and sea and appeared in the grotto where Hephaestus was working. He begged Hephaestus to go with him to high Olympus to free Queen Hera, but the blacksmith god flatly refused. He remembered the evil his mother had done to him. Neither Hermes's pleas nor entreaties helped. Dionysus, the merry god of wine, came to his aid. With loud laughter, he brought Hephaestus a cup of fragrant wine, then another, and another, and another. Hephaestus became tipsy, and now anything could be done with him. He could be taken anywhere. Dionysus, the god of wine, defeated Hephaestus. Hermes and Dionysus put Hephaestus on a donkey and took him to Olympus. Hephaestus rode along, swaying. Around Hephaestus, the ivy-clad Maenads danced merrily, holding thyrsus in their hands. The tipsy satyrs jumped awkwardly. Torches smoked, the sound of timpani, 3 rang out loudly, laughter rang out, and tambourines clattered. And in front walked the great god Dionysus in a wreath of grapes and with a thyrsus. The procession moved merrily along. Finally, they arrived at Olympus. Hephaestus freed his mother in an instant, now no longer remembering his resentment. Hephaestus remained to live on Olympus. He built magnificent golden palaces there for the gods, and built himself a palace of gold, silver, and bronze. He lives there with his wife, the beautiful, welcoming Charity, goddess of grace and beauty. Hephaestus's forge is also located in this palace. Hephaestus spends most of his time in his wondrous forge. In the middle stands a huge anvil, and in the corner is a furnace with a blazing fire and bellows. These bellows are amazing. They do not need to be moved by hand. They obey Hephaestus's command. He speaks, and the bellows work, fanning the fire in the furnace into a bright blaze. Covered in sweat, black with dust and soot, the godsmith works in his forge. What marvelous works Hephaestus forges there. Indestructible weapons, gold and silver jewelry, bowls and cups, tripods that roll on golden wheels as if alive. Having finished his work and washed away the sweat and soot in a fragrant bath, Hephaestus limps and staggers on his weak legs to the feast of the gods, to his father, Zeus, the thunderer. Friendly and good-natured, he often stops a quarrel between Zeus and Hera that is about to break out. The gods cannot help but laugh as they watch the lame Hephaestus hobble around the banquet table, pouring fragrant nectar for the gods. Laughter makes the gods forget their quarrels. But the god Hephaestus can also be formidable. Many have experienced the power of his fire and the terrible, mighty blows of his enormous hammer. Even the waves of the raging rivers Xanthus and Simois were subdued by Hephaestus's fire under Troy. Fearsome, he struck mighty giants with his hammer. Great is the god of fire, the most skilled divine blacksmith Hephaestus. He gives warmth and joy. He is kind and friendly. But he also punishes severely. Demeter is one of the most revered goddesses in Greece. She is the goddess of fertility and agriculture, particularly worshipped by farmers. Numerous festivals were held in her honor throughout Greece. It is noteworthy that in Homer's poems, the goddess Demeter seems to be pushed into the background. This proves that the Greeks began to worship her as the greatest goddess when agriculture became their main occupation, and cattle breeding lost its former importance. The great goddess Demeter had a young and beautiful daughter, Persephone. Persephone's father was the great son of Cronus, the thunderer Zeus. One day, the beautiful Persephone, together with her friends, the Oceanids, was frolicking carefree in the blossoming Nysian Valley. Like a light-winged butterfly, Demeter's young daughter flitted from flower to flower. She picked lush roses, fragrant violets, snow-white lilies, and red hyacinths. Persephone frolicked carefree, unaware of the fate that her father Zeus had in store for her. Persephone did not think that she would not soon see the bright light of the sun again, that she would not soon admire the flowers and inhale their sweet fragrance. Zeus gave her in marriage to his gloomy brother Hades, ruler of the realm of the dead, and Persephone had to live with him in the darkness of the underworld, deprived of light and the hot southern sun. Hades saw Persephone frolicking in the Nysia Valley and decided to kidnap her immediately. He begged the goddess of the earth, Gaia, to grow a flower of unusual beauty. The goddess Gaia agreed, and a wonderful flower grew in the Nysia Valley. Its intoxicating fragrance spread far and wide. Persephone saw the flower. She reached out and grabbed it by the stem, and the flower was plucked. Suddenly, the earth opened up, and the lord of the realm of the dead, the gloomy Hades, appeared from the earth in a golden chariot drawn by black horses. He grabbed the young Persephone, lifted her into his chariot, and in the blink of an eye disappeared into the depths of the earth on his swift horses. Persephone only had time to cry out. The scream of horror from Demeter's young daughter carried far and wide, reaching the depths of the sea and the high, bright Olympus. No one saw the gloomy Hades kidnap Persephone. Only the god Helios, the sun, saw it. The goddess Demeter heard Persephone's cry. She hurried to the Nicean valley, searching everywhere for her daughter. She asked her friends, the Oceanids, but she was nowhere to be found. The Oceanids did not see where Persephone had disappeared to. Deep sorrow over the loss of her only beloved daughter took hold of Demeter's heart. Dressed in dark clothes, for 9 days, unaware of anything, thinking of nothing, the great goddess Demeter wandered the earth, shedding bitter tears. She searched everywhere for Persephone, asking everyone for help, but no one could help her in her grief. Finally, on the 10th day, she came to the god Helios, the sun, and begged him with tears. "O radiant Helios, you travel high in the sky, in your golden chariot, over all the earth and all the seas. You see everything. Nothing can hide from you. If you have even a little pity for an unhappy mother, then tell me where my daughter Persephone is. Tell me where to look for her. I heard her cry. She was taken from me. Tell me who took her. I have searched everywhere for her, but I cannot find her anywhere." The radiant Helios replied to Demeter, "Great goddess, you know how I honor you. You see how I grieve when I see your sorrow. Know that the great cloud gatherer, Zeus, gave your daughter in marriage to his gloomy brother, Lord Hades. He kidnapped Persephone and took her to his terrifying kingdom. Overcome your heavy sorrow, goddess, for your daughter's husband is great. She has become the wife of the mighty brother of the great Zeus." The goddess Demeter was even more saddened. She was angry with Zeus, the god of thunder, for giving Persephone to Hades as his wife without her consent. She left the gods, left the bright Olympus, took the form of a mere mortal, and, dressed in dark clothes, wandered among mortals for a long time, shedding bitter tears. All growth on earth ceased. The leaves on the trees withered and fell. The forests stood bare. The grass faded. The flowers dropped their colorful corollas and withered. There were no fruits in the gardens. The green vineyards withered, and the heavy, juicy bunches did not ripen in them. The once fertile fields were empty. Not a blade of grass grew on them. Life on earth froze. Hunger reigned everywhere. Cries and moans were heard everywhere. Destruction threatened the entire human race. But Demeter, immersed in grief for her beloved daughter, saw and heard nothing. Finally, Demeter came to the city of Eleusis. There, by the city walls, she sat in the shade of an olive tree on the stone of sorrow, near the well of maidens. Demeter sat motionless, like a statue. Her dark clothes fell in straight folds to the ground. Her head was bowed, and tears rolled from her eyes, one after another, and fell onto her chest. Demeter sat there for a long time, alone and inconsolable. The daughters of the king of Eleusis, Salius, saw her. They were surprised to see a woman in dark clothes crying at the spring, approached her, and asked her sympathetically who she was. But the goddess Demeter did not reveal herself to them. She said that her name was Deo, that she was from Crete, that she had been kidnapped by robbers, but she had escaped from them, and after a long journey, had come to Eleusis. Demeter asked the daughters of Celeus to take her to their father's house, agreeing to become their mother's servant, raise the children, and work in Celeus's house. The daughters of Celeus brought Demeter to their mother, Metaneira. The daughters of Celeus did not think that they were bringing a great goddess into their father's house. But when they brought Demeter into their father's house, the goddess touched the top of the door with her head, and the whole house was illuminated with a wonderful light. Metaneira stood up to meet the goddess, realizing that her daughters had brought her no mere mortal. Calea's wife bowed low before the stranger and asked her to take her place as queen. Demeter refused. She sat silently on a simple servant's seat, still indifferent to everything that was happening around her. Metaneira's maid, the cheerful Yamba, seeing the stranger's deep sadness, tried to cheer her up. She cheerfully served her and her mistress, Metaneira. Her laughter rang out loudly, and her jokes flowed freely. Demeter smiled for the first time since the gloomy Hades had kidnapped Persephone from her, and for the first time she agreed to taste food. Demeter stayed with Celeus. She began to raise his son, Demophon. The goddess decided to give Demophon immortality. She held the baby to her divine breast on her lap. The baby breathed the immortal breath of the goddess. Demeter rubbed him with ambrosia, and at night, when everyone in Celeus's house was asleep, she wrapped Demophon in swaddling clothes and placed him in a brightly burning oven. But Demophon did not receive immortality. When Metaneira saw her son lying in the oven, she was terribly frightened and begged Demeter not to do this. Demeter was angry with Metaneira, took Demophon out of the oven and said, "Oh, you foolish woman! I wanted to give your son immortality, to make him invulnerable. Know that I am Demeter, who gives strength and joy to mortals and immortals." Demeter revealed to Metaneira who she was, and took on her usual form as a goddess. Divine light spread throughout the rooms of the palace. The goddess Demeter stood, majestic and beautiful, her golden hair falling over her shoulders, her eyes burning with divine wisdom, her clothes exuding fragrance. Metaneira and her husband fell to their knees before her. The goddess Demeter commanded that a temple be built in Eleusis, at the source of Callicora, and she remained to live there. Demeter herself established festivals at this temple. Demeter's grief for her beloved daughter did not leave her, nor did she forget her anger toward Zeus. The earth remained barren. Famine grew worse, as not a single blade of grass sprouted in the farmers' fields. The farmers' oxen dragged heavy plows across the fields in vain. Their work was fruitless. Entire tribes perished. The cries of the hungry rose to the heavens, but Demeter did not heed them. Finally, the sacrifices to the immortal gods ceased to smoke on the earth. Destruction threatened all living things. The great cloud gatherer, Zeus, did not want the destruction of mortals. He sent the messenger of the gods, Prusa, to Demeter. She quickly flew on her rainbow wings to Eleusis, to the temple of Demeter, calling her, begging her to return to bright Olympus, to the assembly of the gods. Demeter did not heed her pleas. The great Zeus sent other gods to Demeter, but the goddess did not want to return to Olympus until Hades returned her daughter Persephone to her. Then the great Zeus sent Hermes, swift as thought, to his gloomy brother Hades. Hermes descended into the terrifying realm of Hades, appeared before the Lord of the souls of the dead, seated on his golden throne, and told him of Zeus's will. Hades agreed to release Persephone to her mother, but first made her swallow a pomegranate seed, a symbol of marriage. Persephone ascended her husband's golden chariot with Hermes. Hades' immortal horses raced forward, fearing no obstacles, and in the blink of an eye, they reached Eleusis. Overjoyed, Demeter rushed to meet her daughter and embraced her. Her beloved daughter Persephone was with her again. Demeter returned to Olympus with her. Then the great Zeus decided that Persephone would live with her mother for 2/3 of the year and return to her husband Hades for 1/3. The great Demeter restored fertility to the earth, and everything blossomed and turned green again. The forests were covered with tender spring foliage. Flowers bloomed on the emerald grass of the meadows. Soon the fertile fields sprouted. The gardens bloomed and smelled sweet. The greenery of the vineyards sparkled in the sun. All of nature awoke, and all living things rejoiced and praised the great goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone. But every year, Persephone leaves her mother, and each time Demeter is plunged into sorrow, and once again dresses in dark clothes. And all of nature mourns her departure. The leaves on the trees turn yellow and are blown away by the autumn wind. The flowers fade, the fields become empty, and winter arrives. Nature sleeps, only to awaken in the joyful splendor of spring when Persephone returns to her mother from the joyless realm of Hades. When her daughter returns to Demeter, the great goddess of fertility generously bestows her gifts upon the people and blesses the farmer's labor with a rich harvest. Thank you for listening. The next episode in this series will be released very soon, where we'll continue our journey through the myths and wonders of ancient Greece. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Until next time, may the gods watch over your dreams.